Okay, welcome back to the loft project. We are finally on the home straight, I think. We're getting the trim in and we've given ourselves a deadline to get in here by tomorrow. So what I've got to do now is get all the skirting boards fitted, and I thought I'd just run through how I'm prepping because we're reusing all the old boards. So I'm coming at this from a sort of DIY, home, restoration, renovation viewpoint. Obviously if you're in a really historic building and doing a complete listed restoration, then it might be that you have to get all these stripped and you might have to send them off to get dipped in a tank and completely stripped back. But I'll give you an idea of just how I've been throughout the house reusing whatever trim and skirting I can. Certainly in this house, when you pull off the skirting, you end up with the skirting boards with some bits of wood on there sometimes and the great big long nails on there. Now the temptation is to drive those nails back out, with a hammer, but then of course on this side it'll blow out the paint and chip out any wood or filler or whatever's there. And quite often they've been filled and smoothed over fine when they were put in 100 years ago. So what I tend to do is just take an angle grinder with a nice thin blade and just cut all of the nails off at the back at the surface of the wood or a little bit below. And that way you haven't got to disrupt anything on the front, and they're in the board but it doesn't really matter and they're not going to cause any issues. So for some reason up here on this level there were two different heights of skirting boards, and certainly in this house how the house was trimmed out changes as you go up through the house. So obviously the bit that the visitors see right on the ground floor had beautiful 11-inch carved skirting, or moulded skirting, and was really nice. Unfortunately in this house a lot of that had been ripped out and we had to reinstate some of it. But as you get up to the bedrooms, the architrave gets slightly narrower and the skirting boards drop to this sort of 6 or 7 inch height and become just a standard OG or whatever moulding it is. And then when you get to this top floor, a lot of them have dropped in height down again. As far as the prep goes, these are just bound to be full of lead paint, and there's just it's not worth risking sanding it indoors or without the proper preparation and dust masks. So I've sanded these outside. I did it with the garage with both doors open, and just ran over electric sander with a random orbital on the flat bits, and then just some folded sandpaper to get in there, and just make sure that you sand the top and also the back. If there's drips of paint there, it won't sit flush against the walls. And if you've had a carpet up here, you'll find that the bottom hasn't been painted as much, so make sure it's sanded and there's no kind of steps between coats of paint. Then I brushed them off outside, and like I was saying, lead paint is just the worst thing. I don't know scientifically what it does to a human body, but I remember at our last house, Jo sanded a small wall dresser which had old paint on it, and she just sanded it on the lawn. I said best keep it out of the house. She sanded it on the lawn, and for 3 years we could not grow grass in that area. The square of grass died, and it must have just got into that patch of soil, and eventually it kind of recovered, but it must be bad if that's the result to grass. And lastly, before I start, these are going to be painted before I fit them. Once they're fitted, then I'll just kind of touch up the corners and the joins. But I've always found that to at least prime the boards before they go in, if not, get them nicely painted in your own time on a table, and then we'll go ahead and fit them after that. So I'm using an acrylic eggshell, and just to make sure that it keys to the old gloss, which is obviously oil based, well, that's the reason why I've sanded it. If you're going straight over with a solvent based gloss, then you might be able to skip that step, but it's an easy way of cleaning the boards anyway. The way I'm doing it is use the roller to get everything on there. That gives us a good even coverage, and then I like a brush finish, so I just go over with the brush to just smooth everything out and just give it a little bit of a better look than the foam roller. And we'll need a brush anyway to get in all those grooves. The bit I want to concentrate on is this top section, because that's what is going to be tricky to paint when it's in, so I'd rather get that all nice now. I can always touch up the middle of the boards quite easily after they're in without affecting the other paint around it. There is another option, which is to spray the boards, which is what we did with the hall stairs landing project last year. And we primed all of our boards and put the first coat using our little HVLP sprayer, and that worked quite well. But like I said, because I like a brush finish, I still finished it in situ with a brush. But it certainly, because they were quite wide boards, it went on nice and quick using the sprayer. I'm going to undo this. We're going to go 2 coats, and then hopefully fitted by the end of the day. Okay, it's been about an hour and a half, and I'm happy to go on with the next coat now. So we'll get this painted. I'll go and do some other jobs whilst it dries, and then hopefully maybe 2 or 3 hours time I can set up the saw and get everything cut. Okay, so I've started fitting the boards. I'm not going to go through the details of that because I've done it in a couple of other videos already. But one thing about the old skirting boards, if you're reusing, is these were originally scribed to all the floorboards that are here. And because they're not going back in exactly the same places, and obviously we've changed around the walls a bit, we end up kind of with our odd sort of wobbly lines at the bottom where it's not joining flush with the floorboards. You could just trim along there, but I'd rather just have it nice and neat just with the skirting board. So all I've done is just gone along with a pencil, and the pencil is quite a good guide. You can just run it along the floor and we'll re-scribe it. But all I'm doing is just taking off the high points, which gives us our pencil mark. I've done the other end already. So now we know we just need to plane down those sections, and then it will sit better onto the floor. Next thing, where we're going to scribe it over into the corner, I'll link to the videos where I've done that with pictures and skirting in the past. But you would just want to make sure that you've kind of cut it on a mitre like that, which gives you your outline for the skirting board. Recently I've been using these little Japanese saws, or Japanese style saws, and this was from Lidl. It was I think £3 or £4, but it's just razor sharp, as you can tell, and you can do majority of it with this, and then just a coping saw for the last little bit. So that's our profile, which is going to sit over the skirting board at the far end. And then, just because I've run out of pieces really, I had to put a scarf joint in here. So I should really have done the scarf joint running the other way, but it's a bit late now. And then with those scarf joints, I normally use mitre bond, you know, like 2-part, we'll do it in a minute, a 2-part adhesive, and that it just goes off straight away, so I can get them glued up on the table and then fit them. Next is the scarf joint, and I'm sure there are a lot of products available. This seems to be the cheapest one, but works exactly the same. And I just join the two pieces before I fit them. Just going to use the edge of the table to make sure they're square. We'll give that a light sand once it's in, but that's pretty much it. You can see there it's holding its own weight already after 10 or 15 seconds. So we'll just fit that like we would anything else now. I've done this end here. It's just, this board here is so cupped that I've ended up losing a bit of the angle there, so I'll have to sand and paint that on the corner. I think it was unavoidable without trying to scribe all sorts of miters. But, so now just this L shape here to do. That's the difference when you've got, you know, a new stud wall and a plywood. This is our sheet of plywood here. Everything's square, it just flies in. You haven't got to worry about all those bumps. We're getting there now. This is her second to last piece to go in, and this is the one that had the exposed studs, which we had to pack out level with the plasterboard. So I've just it turned out that 2 offcuts of skirting board brought it out perfect. So I've screwed in 2 of those to each other, and I've also put adhesive along the top where it touches, and then a little bit where it's going to touch those blocks. So there's a slight bow in this wall, in the middle. So for that bit, I'm going to use a screw just so it pulls it in to where we want it, which is there. So there's a little bit left to do, filling those nail holes and just touching up any of the paintwork and possibly a little bit of caulk where needed. But we have done quite a lot of the work already by painting them first. So it's not really a tutorial on how to fit skirting, because I've kind of covered that in other videos, plus also there are so many other techniques and pro tips that I wouldn't be able to give you. But it's more just some of the hurdles you have to come across when you are trying to reuse the old boards, whether they've been scribed or whether they've got nails in or old paint. So hopefully that's of help to anyone trying to reuse other materials, whether they're from your house or from a reclamation yard or something. So we really are coming to the end now. The aim is to be in here by tomorrow night, as far as move the whole office up here, relocate. There's plenty of snagging to do, and I think I'll just pull another late one tonight and get all that done. The only thing we're waiting on is just to get the sockets put in from the eaves, so I'll just run a temporary power supply up. So I think there'll probably be one more video left in it, which will be kind of just trim, finishing off the whole thing and showing you the final look of the room. Actually, just remember we haven't trimmed out the roof window. That might be another week or 2 off. But anyway, thanks for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.